Hello, Mr. Poor. Okay, so I'm going to go over the concepts. Samsung did use a few business strategies that we did read over in the book. So the first concept I wanted to talk about was vertical integration. Now, Samsung is a very popular brand. It's a global brand. So it's not surprising to see that Samsung engages in many different markets. So you see Samsung within the market for TVs, computers, appliances, and even smartphones. So I think this is starting to become a problem since it is so widely spread. They wanted to have a better way to have control over their markets and its resources and its materials. So the best way to do that is to use one of the concepts that we mentioned in the book, which is called vertical integration. So Samsung chose to do vertical integration, and they produced their chips. They started producing their chips and displays in-house. And there are many advantages to using vertical integration. The first one I want to go over is it reduces transportation costs. So there's no need for imports or exports since they are in charge of, they have their own distributor and they're manufacturers, they're retailers, suppliers. It's all there closer to them geographically, so that cuts off on transportation a lot. The other thing is it improves supply chain coordination. So the way when you order the materials and it's coming through, there's a good flow with it since everything is there. Everything is in-house, so they shouldn't have any problem with the flow of supply chain. The other thing is they also increase control over inputs. Now, if everything is being made in-house, then you have oversight on how things are being made, the way it's being made, and you can actually intervene if you ever needed to right away in no time since everything is there in-house for you. The last advantage is it increases entry barriers. So when you're creating things that are in-house, most of the times those things can be very unique that it may become a scarce resource to other competition. So you created an entry barrier so other competitors cannot enter the market because you have a material that only you have sole access to. Now the next thing, let's put that in slideshow. Okay, now the next concept I wanted to go over is focus differentiation. So right now, this is going to apply mostly to Samsung's smartphone market. So Samsung is competing extremely well in the smartphone market against Apple. So that means Samsung has a lot of power because in order to compete with one of the best smartphone providers in the market, you have to be some kind of competition, and that's Samsung right there. So Samsung has identified a problem. It noticed that they have been launching way too many phones within a year. They've launched over 56 new smartphones in just 1 year, and that creates a problem because when you have so many models, you don't know which model is performing well, which model is being demanded more, and you don't know which model to invest in and to improve because you have so many and you keep coming up with the newest versions of each of those 56 models. So they decided to use to best solve the problem by using a focused differentiation strategy, and they started cutting out lines and they decreased the lines. I believe they decreases the models that they had by 30%. So now they're only left with mostly Samsung Galaxies and Samsung Notes, which are the best sellers for Samsung. And I think that's the best way to compete with Apple because Apple has a very, very narrow amount of smartphones that they offer. So Apple has 2 iPhones, the regular size and the Plus, and they also have 2 tablets. So that's what Samsung kind of copied because it seems to be a strategy that works really well. And that way they know that when they have enough money to do research and find ways to improve, they only have to improve and come up with new models for those 2 that they decided to keep. Okay, let's see. And the other concept I wanted to speak on was competitive intelligence. Now, Samsung is known as a great market reader, and it's also known as a classic follower. So by market reader, what Samsung likes to do is they like to scan the market for new innovations, and they like to watch every move that their competition is making. So they pay attention to what the competition is bringing in, what new toys they're bringing in, and they're also watching how consumers are reacting to those new innovations. And if those new toys are gaining a lot of tractions, then they go ahead and they become that classic follower by recreating the innovation, but they are way too smart and too wise to just recreate the product and slap their name over it. The best way is to recreate it but make it better so that people want your product. So they include value-added services and features. So they make it better and they tweak it in such a manner that people would want to buy Samsung phones as well. Now, the last one I want to speak on is sustainable competitive advantage. Now, this is something Samsung has to work on. It is a trusted brand, but it does not have a sustainable competitive advantage if we're talking about the smartphone market. Right now, we know that the company that has the sustainable competitive advantage in the smartphone market is Apple. No matter how many different companies try to imitate Apple's iPhones, people still prefer iPhones over all other brands. So right now, this market is the market that Samsung is watching most carefully because they know that there is a lot of room for growth within that market, and if they can dominate that market, that will bring them to the next phase of growth. But they first must have to overcome that sustainable competitive advantage that I mentioned that Apple has. So the best way to do that is to invest a lot of their efforts into furthering and distinguishing their products, not just making it look better or making it bigger, but they have to make it so different that it is no longer a substitute or an alternative of Apple products. It's not the next in line, but it's just as good, or maybe it should be better, and that people would prefer Samsung over Apple. Okay. And then lastly, our conclusion, we want to speak on the future and competitiveness of Samsung. So as a team, we selected Samsung because we believe Samsung is a very strong contender in the market. In all markets, actually. It dominates in a majority of the markets that it has entered. And right now, the toughest market that it has entered is the smartphone market because there is a lot of competition. Apple has definitely set the bar very high, but Samsung is not that far behind. So we strongly believe that if Samsung could find a way to distinguish its product, it might be able to overcome Apple's current sustainable competitive advantage. And that would lead them to their next phase of growth. But we've also come to an agreement that even if Samsung doesn't dominate the smartphone market, number 2 is not that bad. But even if it doesn't dominate the market, Samsung has already made plans. Like, they know not to linger on in a market. They don't have to completely dominate it, but second place is not bad, but they have to move on further. That's why they already made plans for future investments in other markets like clean energy, healthcare, and biotechnology. And I believe these new markets that they are venturing in will definitely help them reach further heights within their company. So that is the company we selected, and that is our concepts and conclusion.